Welcome to Join Our Town. I'm Dolly Velasquez, and with me are Gordon and Carri Taylor. Today our issue is youth, and in particular we're going to be talking about children and the effects on children, especially children in blended families. Welcome to Join Our Town, Gordon and Carri.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Now let me ask you first of all, what is the single biggest factor that affects children in blended families?
Well, in a nutshell, it's conflict. And of course, divorce results from conflict. And so even in marriage, the children suffer. But in divorce, it's a very adversarial situation. And between the children taking on the blame many times in divorce, and then seeing their parents, and by the way, kids don't get divorced, parents do, so you only get one mom and dad, but to see them in an adversarial stance really emotionally shreds the children.
And it is sad that they think, well, gee, if I'd made my bed, or if I'd done my homework, if I'd just done this, mom and dad wouldn't be divorced. So we need to relieve them that this is not a problem they had. This is a sin problem their parents had. And not resolving the issues between them.
And what would you say is a major problem? Would that be the first step, is the children feeling like they're responsible?
Well, that's how children are egocentric. They take the world's problem onto themselves because I'm the center of the world, so it must be my fault, whether it's good or bad. But many times the parents are so caught up in their own, hatred many times, or adversarial position, that even as Christians we don't understand, and we lose sight of what God has done for us. And so because of that, then we lose the ability to do for others, and the others in most cases that we're talking about are our own children, and they get used between the divorcing couple as messengers, message bearers, if you will, and it puts them in a very, very stressful, untenable position.
Plus, they're living in two different worlds.
The children are.
Oh yeah, they're, one bio parent has moved, relocated, and we have children that have said, I don't even call it my home, I call it mom's home, dad's home. So they don't know where they belong. I hear this from adults that lived in a step family and went through divorce, saying they did not know where they belonged. Where was my place? And sometimes they don't have a place. Sometimes maybe there's a bedroom, sometimes it's a couch. So they're the ones that are packing up and going, and I don't really believe the divorced couple is thinking about that.
And one thing they don't think about, as evidenced by their answer to the question, how are your kids doing? Well, they're doing fine. They're resilient, and we've come to hate that word because resilient means returning to your original shape. And the kids do not. They're survivors, and what I run into a lot is my kid lies about me or lies to me, and really, as Carri mentioned, they're just trying to survive in two different worlds and learn how to survive in dad's world or how to survive in mom's world. And as they are trying to survive, they lose the ability to run their own life, in essence, to be a kid, to do their homework, to have friends, because they're so concerned about my own survival.
Yeah, and I think of the anger that's obviously present with the divorce and the lack of forgiveness that can go on,
The anger between the parents.
Yes.
And lack of forgiveness.
Yeah, that, it says be angry and sin not. And be forgiving, be compassionate. And when we speak, one of our big things is to the adults, look at your life through your children's eyes. Because they're not. They're in their own pain. I mean, when we need to parent most, we're equipped the least because we're surviving through the throes of divorce and trying to put our life back together. And many times the kids will put their pain on hold because they see that. And they don't want to lose their security. So then they're called sleeper kids. Maybe 3 to 5 to 7 years later, the kid explodes. Everything seems to have stabled and it seems to be stable and steadied, but now it's time for my pain that I've been hanging on to all this time.
Now, couples don't go into a marriage thinking this is going to last 4 or 5 years, 7 years, 10 years at the most. They don't do that. As a Christian couple, let's address Christian couples. How, there's such a feeling of failure, for the couple when they find themselves in the throes of divorce, and they just can't reverse that. They can't stop that. How do you minister to parents who are going through a divorce so that there's a little bit more health within them than to be able to have enough to support their children?
Well, one thing that we're passionate about, capital P, passionate, is preparation and education. But the vast majority of couples do not prepare for a first marriage, and even fewer prepare for a subsequent marriage.
Nor do they go through divorce recovery.
Right.
I mean, this is such an essential part of grieving the loss of this family, to being healthy enough to be able to minister to your own children, to get your relationship with God back in sync. And not that it never was, but it only takes one person for a divorce. It takes 2 to create a marriage and only 1 to break it up. So whether you're the one that broke it up for whatever reasons or you're the one that got left, I mean, there's a lot of trauma to resolve, and the kids are watching all of this, and they're watching how you handle this. So the best testimony we can give our kids is really show them how we're leaning on the Lord and His strength and His forgiveness and His compassion. And I mean, the Bible is full of failed people, and God uses all of them. So our life is not over.
I think one other aspect is that couples really don't understand marriage, and whether you're talking about secular researchers or Christian researchers in marriage, one of the key aspects to breakups is that we didn't understand in the first place what we were getting into. I love a Christian researcher, Dr. David Mace, who's passed on now, but his statement is, only within the long-term committed relationship we call marriage will you fully mature or bear the consequences of your immaturity.
Wow.
And that really says it all in terms of Christian couples, that we marry thinking of what we're going to get rather than what we need to give.
Right.
And the children, I love that you said that you hate the term they're resilient, because that's what I've heard. So as a parent, I know that the first thing has got to be, I need to pray for my child. I've got to love my child more than myself. Sometimes I'm willing to die for my child, but am I willing to live?
Right. And so this is an example of, I'm willing to pray for my child, and I ask this question to my clients sometimes, what are you willing to do? Implementation is always the hardest part in relationships. We can be as wise as Solomon here, but unless I take that wisdom and apply it and make it effective in my relationship, that we get the sense that love is a feeling rather than in 1 Corinthians 13, it's patient, it's kind, it's forbearing, and all of these behaviors that we need to implement in our marriage and in our parenting.
I think another shock is adult children, that we assume that since they're adults, they'll get it. Oh no, they have a longer history with their parents.
Wow.
Younger
might
children,
be even more difficult.
Well, yeah, and their brain wraps around what's going on, whereas a young child, their brain's not developed. They bond a lot easier, and it can be more of their normal. But here we've got adult kids that can really, really react at the divorce and particularly a remarriage and cause a lot of problems because you just snapped my history in two.
So what would you say to a parent that is blinded by anger, resentment, unforgiveness towards an adult, but they absolutely love their children? What would you tell them? Because you know some things that the rest of us may not know. How do I turn things around for my children? Thinking that they're fine, not realizing that they're not, or that I might see the effects of it in a few years?
In a word, listen to them. This is the #1 complaint kids have of their parents. They don't listen to me. See, we want to come in and solve their problems, resolve everything,
make it okay.
Make it okay. And yet we don't really hear. And in Proverbs over and over again, it says, listen before you speak. Be a good listener. A wise man listens for the fact, and so listening is very powerful, and the healing of emotions starts in the expression of them. And so if we can listen to
That's powerful. The healing of the emotion starts in the expression.
Right, but we many times don't let our kids express their emotion and their passion, their, whatever they're feeling at the time, good or bad.
But they will.
But they'll act it
out.
The actions then become the voice of the child.
But then they call it misbehavior.
Yeah.
And now I got to take my kid to the therapist to get fixed. The kid isn't broken. The family is. And the kids know this. My daughter even came back from a Thanksgiving with my ex and his new wife and was terribly, terribly upset. And my ex was trying to say, we're a happy family. And she says, when Dad's going to get it? At 12 years old, we're a broken family. When is Dad going to get it? Because he was living, in La La Land with his new wife and wasn't understanding. I want to be the safe place to expand on the listening. I want to give my child an opportunity to tell me where they are and what is going on in the best language they know how, and be that listener, not try to change them. Oh, no, it's really not that way. We're really okay. No, we're not.
I think that's where health starts, when we're honest.
Yes.
And
Right.
we have to turn off all the electronics, turn off the television, turn off the radio, turn off those cell phones, put them somewhere, all the other electronic
Yeah, right.
stuff that we have, and just really stop and listen is what you're saying.
I'm not the same place, somebody else, or a group of teenagers, or a boyfriend, or a girlfriend, or drugs. Because we've watched this over 35 years I've been working with divorced and remarried couples, and we've seen this in our friends, we've watched this in some of our kids. They will find a place to deal with their pain. So I want to be that place, and that's what I would encourage parents to do.
Thank you so much. And I know that you have a website where people can find out more information, how parents can minister to their children, minister to their hurts and their healings, be open and absolutely honest. And I want to encourage the viewers that if you're facing a divorce, don't feel like it's the end of the road. Gordon and Carri have said there's a lot of failed people in the Bible. Failed marriages even, and God can restore and redeem. Take and love on your children. Live for them. Thank you, we'll be right back with more of Join Our Town.